Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel. So please sign up for anything related to your health to their newsletter. And if you need any workspaces, whether it's virtual, a boardroom, or just for an hour, a month, or a year, Alexa's Workspaces can help you. And if you want to become your own entrepreneur with an online boutique, Hermosa Mujer can also help you with that. So, welcome, Viviana.
Thank you, Gladys.
The Women's Fund has done extensive research led by Viviana on the Gender Equity Index. And now we have a comparison from last year to this year on real interesting data. So, Viviana, first of all, please explain what the Gender Equity Index is.
Thank you, Gladys. So the Gender Equity Index, it's a tool that was developed by the Women's Fund Miami-Dade that measures gender equity in Miami-Dade County. What this means is how far we are from women and men being equal. There's a difference between what is
That was my next
Yes.
question.
I figured I'd go right into it. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a difference between equality, right? There's been ongoing conversations around gender equality, especially around the pay gap, right? We want
Yeah,
to be paid equally for equal work. Um,
correct.
and then what it means to reach gender equity. Um, when you're looking at it, equality means that everybody's at the same level. However, we look at it from a gender equity perspective because equity means that people who don't start at the same level as everybody else are given the same opportunities or even more opportunities in order to reach that same level. So you can think about somebody in a wheelchair. And there's this great illustration online. I encourage everybody to look it up on the difference between equality and equity. And you think about it and you have a fence in front of you and you're trying to see a game. You have somebody who is just standing up and can see over the fence. You have somebody that is too short and can't see over the fence or can see only a little bit over the fence. And then you have somebody who is in a wheelchair and can't see over the fence at all. What equity means is that you can give them the tools so that they can see over the fence and reach that same level. So for the person that's too short, maybe you're just giving them a little box and they
And
can
they
see.
can stand up. Correct.
And then for the person in the wheelchair, maybe you create a little ramp that goes up and then they're able to see. It's giving people the tools that they need in order to reach the same level that everybody else is.
So after that, it is it is based on each one and the potential that each one can give. But it's really putting them at the same level.
Exactly. It's making everybody equal. It's a way that you do it. It's a fairness thing. So
Okay, but does this have anything to do with DEI? Nothing to do with that, right?
diversity, equity, and inclusion, of course, it's part of it.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Does that answer your
so
question?
yeah. So talk to me about the study. I know that you did the study based on the four pillars that the Women's Fund stand for.
So we started the Gender Equity Index back in 2021, and we went back 10 years. So we've been looking at data from 2010 up until 2021, and every year since we've been updated the Gender Equity Index. So right now we just did our 2025 release with 2023 data. And it is based on our four pillars. So you'll see data on our economic mobility, health and well-being, leadership, and freedom from violence.
So tell me on each side, what was the data for this year? Like, how do you measure the data so that a normal person can understand why and why is it important? that we follow, that we do this data?
I think the best way that we do it and the best way that people can think about it is like, are we in the red or are we in the green? Or are we in the yellow that's kind of in the middle, right? And so when you can visit our website and we have great imaging on there. Right now, what we've seen is that the score for 2023 didn't change from the score in 2022. So we haven't really moved towards equity or gender equity in this past year. And what we've seen is a little bit of a fluctuation in certain scores getting worse, unfortunately, and some of them staying the same. So for economic mobility, for example, we saw it a decrease in the score going from 57 points to 56. However, we've seen a steady decline since 2010 when the score used to be 62. And this could be due to a wide range of issues, but we're looking at very specific metrics. And what's happening is that one of the metrics that we look at is women high wage positions. We've seen an overall increase in women in high wage positions. However, men are still at a higher rate. They have a higher
So
percent.
even though women increase, men have increased even more.
Exactly, which means that the gap is widening even though we are getting better.
That's not very encouraging.
It isn't very encouraging. It is and it isn't. It means that we need to work harder to close the gaps, but it means that we're also striving. There was in 2010, 31% of women were in high wage positions. Now it's 55. So
So it
we're doing,
has increased,
yes,
correct?
it definitely has increased. We're doing a lot better. It's just the gap keeps being wider and
Keep,
wider.
keeps widening.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to the World Bank, it's more than 100 years that we would need to close the gender gap,
Yeah, the gender pay gap. Yeah.
the pay gap. So talk to me about health and well-being. Has it changed?
Yeah, health and well-being um, actually stayed the same. It got a
Okay.
little bit better than 2021, but it stayed pretty much the same. What we're seeing is that there is health insurance coverage hasn't really changed much. What's really particular about this pillar is that we're looking at maternal health, which is something that doesn't affect men, right? So we're looking at maternal morbidity, and we're looking at infant mortality, and we're looking at teenage pregnancies. Infant health, unfortunately, has declined. Infant mortality, not declined, it got a little worse. So did
Oh,
maternal morbidity. So,
so this is even less encouraging.
well,
Because I have here, for example, according to your data, 90% of women actually have health insurance coverage versus 86% of men. However, more women rely on men. Why?
more women rely on public health insurance.
On public health insurance.
Yes. So it means that women
No
are not,
more women, sorry, more women than men
yes.
rely on public health insurance.
Exactly, which means that they tend to get less benefits also. More and more men rely on private health insurance, which means that they are getting a little bit of a better benefits.
What can we do on the morbidity, on maternal morbidity? Is there anything? Because yes, it's been going up.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that unfortunately the US is in the midst of a maternal health crisis, especially a Black maternal health crisis. And we're seeing the same thing here in Miami. We also look at morbidity. We were intentional about looking at maternal morbidity because when you look at maternal mortality, unfortunately, that person died, right? When you look at morbidity, these are people that have to go on for the rest of their lives with the complications that they suffer through their pregnancies. So,
Meaning,
meaning that they suffered from a hospitalization that was very traumatic and that's going to affect them. Like they're going to have health complications because of this
okay,
throughout the rest of their lives. And we know that women live longer than men. So we have a higher life expectancy. And we're going to have these health complications, and which means that we're also going to be paying more for health insurance because we're bound to need it.
and
As we,
especially because of maternity and the whole thing.
yes, and because it's something that it's very much women related, right? Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
So then we go to leadership.
Yes.
Has it changed?
A leadership stayed the same from last year, but that's not uncommon. Um, because what we look at, the metrics that we look at are voter turnout, voter registration, and then the percentage of women in elected positions. And because voting is every 2 years, the score tends to stay the same. What really fluctuates here, what makes it fluctuate, is the representation in elected positions. We saw that,
35%.
yeah,
35% of women versus 65% of men.
yeah, for Miami-Dade County.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we still need that part.
So we're still not halfway there.
No.
No.
So the other pillar that you guys have is freedom from violence.
Mhm.
Freedom for violence also means human trafficking.
It means human trafficking, it means domestic violence, it means sexual assaults, and it means overall crime. So we're looking at all those different metrics.
And what was the change?
We saw a decrease from the previous year.
So it was worse. Because
It,
when you say decrease, it means you can also understand that it was less, but actually it got even worse.
yeah, exactly. Decrease means worse. Yes, in this case.
Yes,
Mhm.
decrease means worse.
Mhm.
Um, in 2023, women accounted for 71% of domestic violence victims
Mhm.
in Dade County.
Yeah, and a little asterisk on this is that it is Miami-Dade County. The data that we're getting it from is Miami-Dade County Police Departments, City of Miami, and Miami Beach. So there are certain municipalities that we still don't have data for.
But certain municipalities, no, you have like the biggest
Oh, we have the
chunk of
biggest, absolutely.
municipalities that you don't have data on.
Well, we don't have, like, for example, Homestead, Florida City, Coral Gables, Hialeah, Miami Gardens, because
Ventura.
yeah, Aventura, because they all have their own individual PDs, right? Police departments, sorry. And because they have their individual police departments, they're not included in the Miami-Dade County Police Department data.
Okay, so that really is not the whole picture.
It's not the full picture. I think we're getting a pretty good glimpse of the whole picture because we have the biggest police departments, but we're still missing some. And I think also the biggest comment to make is that both domestic violence and sexual violence go extremely underreported, right? I don't think we're even scratching the surface of what the reality might be. But this is the data that we're able to gather because of people who actually do.
Do reporting. But for example, according to your data, the difference between domestic violence between women and men is 84% women versus 16% men, which is, I don't know, there are no words to express.
Yeah, I mean, we know that more.
We know that that part is really, but what can we do about it? We have the data, it's getting worse. Women are not getting, like, meaning their fair share in every single sense of the word.
Yes, I think there's a lot of things that we can be doing, even if it's small things around advocating for pay equity, right? We want to make sure that women and men are getting paid fairly for the same job. We want to make sure that we are advocating for women to, or for even all types of survivors to come out and make sure that they're reporting their incidents. But that takes a lot of
Courage.
courage, bravery. Also the systems that are put in place, unfortunately, victimize these survivors. They are re-traumatized often by
And they
telling.
just prefer to forget it and not go
Absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely. So I also think as a researcher, we need to be better about the data. The way that we're capturing some of this data also is a little flawed, because we are relying on a police officer who has to fill out a report on what this incident is. And it is up to that police officer to determine the gender, the race, and the ethnicity of that person. So sometimes, like the data is for the freedom from violence, especially, it's extremely difficult to have such a very accurate view. Um, so the systems that are in place also need to be a little bit better. For leadership, making sure that more women are not only running for office, but elected for office. And also health and well-being, we want to think about that maternal health crisis that is affecting it so much. What can we do? How is it possible that the US, as a developed country, has such a bad maternal morbidity and mortality rate, right? So,
Correct.
advocating, also knowing that this is happening, right? So making
Yeah,
sure that.
because this is an eye-opening that not everybody, I guess, knows
Mhm.
how many women have been affected by maternity morbidity.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of them. And one of the things that we're really strong on advocating is for doula access, midwifery care, because doulas are the pregnant person's advocate. They are there for that person and that person only. And so they're their voice and they're able to express whatever decisions that they make. So we want to be advocating for doula care. Medicaid extension is a little bit of a stretch, but we also want to be advocating for Medicaid extension here in Florida. Um, so there's various things that we can do.
Besides the leadership part and besides the gender equity, because I think that we need to prepare women beforehand. And actually, I'm gonna say a plug here because our Loving Me More program, this is what we're geared to do, to prepare these girls so that they can become better leaders, emotionally healthy and successful, so that when they get to the position at a level that they can be decision makers, that's when they can make choices of how much they can pay everyone.
Sure. I also think it's about advocating for a better system that
Or
includes.
for ourselves, because I've had I've mentored some girls that when they found out that their peer in their work were getting paid less, they do not ask. And one of the examples was I really mentored her. We took a whole list. We did like plan A, B, and C and how she was going to ask for a raise. And it turned out to be easier than that. They gave it to her right then and there. It's also that we found that women do not ask.
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
push back. I
Yes.
push back because there's also the women don't ask and say, what if I'm going to lose my job? I prefer not to ask than have to look for another job.
Yes, and my pushback comes from why are we molding ourselves to a system that was not designed for us to begin with?
Uh, we'll have to go back 200 years.
Right. But,
Correct.
right, it's about, sure, we don't ask and we should be better at asking, but at the same time that we're doing this and we're getting better at this because these are the powers that unfortunately are at play, we need to make sure that at the same time, when we get there, we're changing the structure of how the system works. And
Correct.
we're
That the system works for everyone.
for everybody that it takes into consideration how women negotiate, how women rise to power, how women are amazing leaders, how we're better off, how we're really well off when women are in leadership powers, right? And not have them jump through all of these hurdles and barriers just because the system wasn't made for them.
I understand what you're saying. The
Mhm.
system is not made for them. And the best example that I can give you is, for example, there's a woman that is Formula 2 car racer. Starting from there, the cars are not made for women. The suits that they wear or the helmet
Yeah.
is not made for women. So she's literally had to have everything tailor made. So, yes, the system does not work. But on another hand, according to your index, we're not doing better.
No,
We're not doing better. So,
we are doing better. Again, I think it's important to know that like we are doing better as women have been rate we have a larger percentage of women in elected positions
or in the workforce.
or in the workforce, but the
Correct.
disparity still keeps growing, which means that while we're catching up, men are
Men are
they
really going up a lot.
yeah, exactly. Because they're taking advantage of a system that was built with them in mind. While we're just struggling to like catch up, catch our breaths, and keep going, right? So I do agree. And I mean, when you think about everything that works around us, more women die in car crashes because they test with male dummies. So
Correct. They test. That's another example. The
exactly.
seat belt is made for men.
Exactly. When you think about this one kind of surprises a lot of people, but
What?
women die more often of heart attacks.
Yeah,
Why?
that. Uh-huh.
Because we have breast and people don't know how to conduct CPR with breast.
That's the reason?
Yeah, people are so afraid of touching like a woman's breast that they don't do CPR on them. Also the dummies that you practice on, they're
They're
male.
men.
Yeah,
Correct.
they're male dummies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So, ladies out there, we need to literally step up.
more research on
More
women.
research, more, I don't know if it's more research or helping each other.
Sure.
I think that the secret there is helping each other. And yes, and with that, we're doing the event in Colombia. So it's literally getting women to change their narrative,
Mhm.
to redesign the future that they want to be in.
100%.
Viviana? Thank you so much. For everyone that wants to see all the results, you can find them at the womensfundmiami.org. So please go there and find all the results that they have been diligently updating every time. Thank you to everyone. Please be safe, and hopefully by next week there will be peace in the world. Have a great day.